everybody, this is D Hunter bringing another action figure review. Today we're going to be looking at the DC Collectibles Batman the Animated Series Poison Ivy action figure. This is not the first time they've released this particular Poison Ivy figure. She was previously released in a 5-pack multi-pack called the GCPD Rogues Gallery Pack, and that set was quite expensive and sold out pretty quickly. Ended up being very expensive on the secondary market. I've seen tons of fans begging for DC Direct, DC Collectibles to re-release these as singles, and honestly, I never thought they'd do it, but here it is. So let's go and check out the packaging here. As you can see in the background, this figure is from Batman the Animated Series. They've already released a new Batman Adventures, Poison Ivy. Batman the Animated Series, DC Collectibles. This is the 49th figure in the series, Poison Ivy. As you can see, she's got a ton of hands. It looks like 8 interchangeable hands, totaling 10 hands. She's got a rose here, potted plant, pretty cool. The side here, somebody says Batman Animated Series Poison Ivy. The back side here, there's a barcode in case anyone needs it, and simply just a logo from Batman Animated Series. So with no further ado, let's check this figure out. And I did end up getting 2 of these figures. One to open and enjoy, and one to keep unopened in my complete 6 and 7 inch unopened Batman action figure collection. And then here is the entire wave, 2 of each figure, one of which for me to open, and one of which for me to keep my unopened collection. At the bottom here, we've got 2 of the GCPD Rogues Gallery packs. Obviously I opened one of them, and I kept one unopened. This actually makes for a kind of cool diorama in your city. It's a building, you can stand figures on top of it. It's got some jail cells here. Originally, this set was retailed at $175, and if you do the math, even if you're saying $30 a figure, which is a ridiculous price, 5 figures, $150 is less than $175, so you got to actually pay quite a bit for the packaging as well. This set was overpriced. I got mine at dcbservice.com for $118. I got a considerable discount there. So I was really happy to get these guys. The set was great, very unique. The figures were pretty good as well. And here's my unopened set taking its rightful place in front of my Batman-related comics with my other recently acquired Batman action figures that are unopened. You can see them with some of the other recently released Batman the Animated Series figures. Alright, now that we got this figure out of the package, here she is with all of her accessories laid out. She does come with 8 additional hands, totaling 10 interchangeable hands. She also has a potted plant, a rose plant. I believe this to be from the episode where she tried to poison Harvey Dent before he became Two-Face. But before I look at her accessories, let's check out the actual figure. So my first complaint about the figure is she is quite small, as are most of the females from the DC Collectibles Batman animated line. So she's consistent with that. Just a little bit too small to fit with the rest of my collection, which is a little bit disappointing. But beyond that, I think she looks pretty good. So you can see her face here. It really definitely captures the look from Batman the Animated Series. I absolutely loved how they handled the Poison Ivy character. She was really well done there. I was a Batman fan for the comics as a kid before the show started, and each one of their villains was just handled so well in that show. You can see she got little flip at the top of her hair. She's got green eyes, red lips. Moving down, you can see she's got that crossbow on her wrist, just like in the show. She's got sort of green tights on, some boots with sort of plant leafy stuff sticking out of the side. So overall, as far as the way she looks, she definitely has the right look to her and looks pretty good as an animated villain. And then here she is, broken down as far as she can go, with all of her removable parts detached. Next, let's check out her accessories, starting off with her hands. Here she is wearing her fisted hands. Do keep in mind that the peg is very thin on these things, so be careful when taking them out, and be careful when freeing up the hinge on the wrists. Here she is with her hands completely outstretched and flat. And here's her next set of hands. These are semi-open. I wouldn't exactly call them gripping hands. They could hold something, but it'd have to be kind of a larger type item. Maybe these might be good for choking hands. And then these hands, honestly, I don't even understand what these hands are for. These are kind of like gripping hands, but the middle's filled in. They don't go all the way through. Really not sure what the purpose would be for these. She doesn't come with any accessories that these hands are useful for. And then here she is with her gripping hands, able to hold some objects. Her hands are pretty small, so it'd have to be a small object. More than likely, these are going to be my default hands, as I like my action figures to be able to hold things. Next, let's check out her rose plant. This here is a few different roses sticking out of a pot here. Little blue and red swirl on it. Really nothing much going on here. And then here's her potted plant on the right, next to the potted plant that came with the 5-pack release. The paint job is a little bit different on the pot, as well as the green on the flower. And that definitely pleases me, getting a little variation for getting both releases. And then here's a bunch of other plant type vines and leaves and accessories to enhance your Poison Ivy figure with. Most of these came with previous releases of Poison Ivy from different companies. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at our accessories, next let's check out the height of this figure. So this figure here, pretty short like I said, from bottom to top, sitting at just about 5.5 inches, and that translates to about 14 centimeters. Next, let's check out her articulation. So starting with her head here, of course, it can go around just a little bit from side to side, obstructed by her hair quite a bit. She can look down about that far, which is quite a bit more than I expected. She really can't look up at all, once again, because of her hair. Shoulders on a ball joint. Those, I think, go just a little bit more 90 degrees. Up, down, around, all that fun stuff. No bicep cut. Single jointed elbows. Go in about even 90 degrees. And there's a swivel at the top there. She does have a swivel here in the middle of her forearm. Her wrist here can swivel around, rotate. And it's also hinged as well. Of course, be a little weary of her crossbow here. Very thin, and you don't want to warp it any more than it already is. Absolutely no articulation in this entire chest area. Her legs go out not quite 90 degrees. They can go forward that much, definitely not 90 degrees, and back, not at all. She's got single joint knees. They can go in a full 90 degrees. Then her feet, of course, they can go up, they can go down, and she can also rotate here where the boot cut is, and that's just about it. Next, let's check her out compared to some other action figures, starting off by looking at her with some other Poison Ivy figures. So first of all, here's this single carded release Poison Ivy on the right hand side, compared to the 5-pack release on the left. I absolutely love that they gave it a different paint job. Makes me not regret purchasing this figure a second time. And I must say, I think the original paint job is a little better. You can see the boots here painted a little bit differently, the tights, the green in her outfit, even her flesh is a little bit different, but it's mostly the outfit differences that appeal to me. Here she is next to the rest of the figures from this wave. She is by far the smallest of them. And then here are the 4 original figures on the left, as well as the 4 re-releases on the right. Obviously, the 2 Poison Ivies have considerably different paint job. I can see some very minor differences in Mr. Freeze, mostly with his blue and his purple being different shades. Killer Croc, his skin looks considerably different, which is pretty cool. And honestly, Bane looks almost the same. Here she is next to the DC Collectibles, the new Batman Adventures Poison Ivy. The new Batman Adventures Poison Ivy is actually taller than the Batman the Animated Series Poison Ivy, mostly due to her gigantic head. Here she is next to all the different DC Direct and DC Collectibles Poison Ivy figures that I have. Here she is next to all the different Mattel Poison Ivies that I have. From left to right, we've got the DC Superhero Girls Poison Ivy, sort of a younger teenage Poison Ivy. Next, we've got the DC Universe Classics Signature Collection Poison Ivy. Then, of course, we've got the DC Collectibles Batman the Animated Series Poison Ivy. And then last is a Mattel Multiverse Poison Ivy. I perceive this Poison Ivy as sort of a Batman the Animated Series paint job from the DC Universe Classics collection. Here she is next to a Yamato Poison Ivy. This was a Japanese import from 15 plus years ago. The figure is more or less a statue, has almost no articulation. It looks pretty decent and came with some really cool accessories to enhance my Poison Ivy collection. Here she is next to a couple of Kenner Poison Ivies from the film Batman and Robin. I got these figures just for their accessories for crazy cheap on eBay a long time ago. Notice that these guys are almost the same height as this DC Collectibles Poison Ivy. Here she is next to all the different Poison Ivy figures in my collection. Next, let's check her out compared to a bunch of different plant creatures or monsters that I use for my various Poison Ivy figures. These here are her henchmen or her creations. These two figures here are from Resident Evil. There's some plant monsters. And this guy here actually opens up, kind of like a plant. Here she is next to a couple of Treebeard figures from Lord of the Rings. A walking, talking, living plant just screams Poison Ivy to me. And then I also have this giant Treebeard figure in case Poison Ivy needs some giant monstrous plant. Or maybe she added some Titan in the mix. Here she is next to a couple of Stranger Things Demogorgons. I got these guys because Stranger Things is cool, this guy's design is really cool, and they can double up as sort of a plant hybrid creature from Poison Ivy. Their faces definitely remind me of that other plant creature from Resident Evil, how they open up kind of like the petals of a flower. And here she is next to a Bandai Godzilla movie monster named Biollante. I'm probably saying that wrong. I learned of this figure from one of my subs. He watched one of the other Poison Ivy videos, saw my plant creatures, and asked if I had this, which I sure didn't. I think the thing is pretty cool. It's got sort of plant tentacles inside. It does even have some articulation, and it's got a monstrous living type face. I got this thing for about $20, and it took about a month to get from Japan. Here she is next to a couple of Snakeweed figures from Playmates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line. Here she is next to a DC Collectibles, DC Comics Essentials Swamp Thing figure. This guy doesn't work for Poison Ivy by any means, but definitely plant related. They could have some pretty cool interactions. This figure here I got on clearance, and honestly I think he looks really good, and he's oversized compared to other 7-inch figures. And here she is with a whole bunch of different Kenner 5-inch Swamp Thing figures from the old films. These guys actually scale up pretty decently with her because she's so short. I always use these Swamp Thing figures as people that you turn into sort of plant hybrids in her plant pods, which you'll see in a little bit. And then here she is in her area of Gotham City. As you can see here, all of her creatures or henchmen are on one shelf. And then below that, we've got some of her playsets and dioramas. Leading into her shelf, here she is standing. A bunch of different plants, some traps. And here are the plant pods I talked about earlier. These came with some X-Files figures, and I thought they were a good sort of cross between mechanical and organic plant made. You can see this guy being turned into a plant monster. Here she is next to the Batman the Animated Series Bat Family. That's the show that she's from. And here she is next to the new Batman Adventures Bat Family. Here she is next to the McFarlane DC Multiverse Batman the Animated Series Batman 7-inch scale. Here she is next to all the different rogues they've released from DC Collectibles, from specifically Batman the Animated Series, not showing any of the new Batman Adventures villains. Next, let's check her out compared with some other action figure lines from different various companies to see how she fits in both scale and style-wise, in case you want to see if you can mix her with any of the other lines. And you sure won't be able to mix her with any of the larger lines. Here she is with some of her DC Direct and DC Collectibles brothers and sisters. Here in front of you are 5 different figures from DC Collectibles or DC Direct. Here she is next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. And next to some McFarlane toys. Then next to some various NECA figures. Then next to some Mattel wrestling figures. And then next to some Mezco 1/12 cloth soft goods action figures. And here she is next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. And then next to some Mafex figures. And next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And then next to some SH Figure Arts action figures. And here she is next to some Jazzwares figures. So overall, she's an okay figure. I'm going to say that I prefer the paint application to the previous release versus this one. Her articulation is mediocre at best. Her height is what bothers me the most. She's just so short. And I know she scales up with Batgirl and some of the other animated female figures. But gosh, even next to the smallest 6-inch line, she does not scale up at all. I'm glad that I got my figure from DCBService.com. I paid $19 for her. That is 33% off the suggested $28 price. Her being so small, $20 is ridiculous. If I were to rate this figure, I'd give her a 5 out of 10. Maybe it's a little harsh because she does look good. But the fact she's so short and she's not as good as a previous release, at least color-wise, gives her that low of a score. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add it to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.